What began as a routine television appearance quickly escalated into a high-stakes showdown between two titans. No one could have predicted that an ordinary night on national TV would erupt into a verbal battlefield. On one side stood Jeff Bezos, the mastermind behind the Amazon empire. On the other, Karoline Leavitt, the sharp-tongued White House press secretary, armed with truths few dared to confront. The moment Lauren Sánchez's name was uttered, the atmosphere shifted like a storm front. This wasn't just a spirited debate. It became a war of ideologies, influence, and unspoken power. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. Under the searing stage lights, the crowd's applause echoed, charged with anticipation. The hosts emerged, all smiles and charm, welcoming viewers to what was billed as a special conversation between two of the most influential figures in modern politics and business. Karoline Leavitt, a rising political force known for her no-nonsense approach to corporate accountability, was introduced first. And then, the spotlight turned to Jeff Bezos, Amazon's founder and one of the world's most powerful businessmen, brought in to share insights on technology's role in shaping the global economy. The host wasted no time. Karoline, as the White House press secretary, you've been quite outspoken, especially against large corporations like Amazon. Do you worry that your remarks might tarnish the reputations of powerful individuals like Mr. Bezos? Karoline leaned forward, unflinching. Her voice was steady, her gaze locked on Bezos. No, she said. I'm not here to protect images. I'm here to protect the truth. Decisions made by corporate giants like Amazon ripple far beyond the boardroom. They affect everyday Americans and millions across the globe. If speaking the truth damages someone's reputation, that's on them, not me. The host then turned to Bezos, who maintained a composed expression, though a flicker of unease crossed his face. Jeff, do you take Karoline's statements as personal attacks? Or do you believe her concerns have merit? Bezos gave a diplomatic smile. Karoline's entitled to her perspective. I respect that. But Amazon isn't just a company. It's a global infrastructure built from the ground up. Every decision we make aims to serve not just profits, but progress. That said, I won't back down from tough conversations. If people question how we operate, I welcome that dialogue. The tension was palpable. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Then came the next dagger. The host looked back at Leavitt. You've hinted that companies like Amazon may be hiding truths the public deserves to know. Are you prepared to elaborate? Karoline's eyes narrowed slightly, her tone resolute. Yes. And the truth starts with asking the questions no one else will. Can you be more specific for the audience's sake? The question hung in the air. The tension was electric. Karoline Leavitt didn't flinch. Her eyes remained fixed on Jeff Bezos, and her voice, measured but razor-sharp, cut through the silence like a courtroom prosecutor laying out her case. I'm not here to stir up headlines or take cheap shots at a wealthy businessman, she began. I'm here because the American public has a right to truths that others are working hard to bury. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. Then her voice dropped lower, colder. During the recent inauguration, Lauren Sánchez, attending as Mr. Bezos's companion, used her access to discreetly gather personal photos and information on prominent figures in the MAGA movement. According to reliable sources, these images were later sent directly to a senior editor at the Washington Post. This wasn't a slip-up. It was a coordinated attempt to manipulate media narratives and smear those loyal to the president. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few phones were raised, live streams initiated. Murmurs turned to whispers. All eyes swung to Bezos, stone-faced, unmoved, yet his eyes narrowed. The host leaned forward, his tone tight and deliberate. Karoline, that's a serious accusation. Can you support what you're saying? Without a word, Leavitt stepped toward a massive screen at the back of the stage. In her hand, a USB drive. She inserted it into the port with quiet finality. The screen flickered to life. Let the evidence speak for itself, she said. An email appeared on screen. Subject line, images from the event. Sender, Lauren Sánchez. Attached, 3 files. The first image showed a MAGA-affiliated political figure in a private moment, face visible, clearly engaged in what looked like a serious discussion. The angle suggested the photo had been taken without consent and from a shockingly close distance. Next, a series of text messages were displayed. These will make waves. Be careful how you use them. A collective murmur rose from the crowd. Viewers leaned forward. Others froze, stunned. But Leavitt wasn't done. She tapped again. A grainy surveillance video began to roll. It showed a woman, Lauren Sánchez, standing in a discreet corner of the VIP section. Her phone was raised. Her eyes darted around before she turned her camera toward the group of MAGA leaders. The auditorium erupted. A storm of reactions surged through the crowd, gasps, murmurs, even shouts of outrage. A man in the middle row stood up, shouting, "Unbelievable." On X, formerly Twitter, a trending post was born in real time. Sánchez caught red-handed. The host raised a hand for calm, voice low but insistent. "Let's keep this respectful. Jeff, these materials paint a troubling picture. Do you have a response?" All eyes turned. The lights dimmed slightly, spotlight fixed on Bezos. His previously calm expression had hardened. He stood slowly, adjusted his jacket, and spoke. "I don't usually dignify sensationalism with a response. But let me be clear, what we've just seen is a manipulated compilation lacking proper context. Lauren attended that event like hundreds of other guests. Taking pictures at a public gathering isn't illegal. And with today's technology, almost anything can be forged or distorted." He turned toward Karoline, his voice tightening. "If you're looking for someone to challenge, Karoline, challenge me. Leave Lauren out of it." A portion of the audience applauded. Others hissed and jeered. The crowd was visibly divided. Leavitt offered a faint smile. Her voice was calm, even, but unyielding. "Jeff, you talk about technology, but I have a human witness, a former Washington Post editor who personally saw those images circulated internally with instructions to maximize their impact. Shall I invite them on stage?" Bezos didn't reply. He simply sat down, rubbing his chin. The host, sensing the moment spiraling, leaned in with a neutral tone. "Karoline, you've introduced a highly complex and emotionally charged issue here. Do you believe these findings point to a larger scheme? And Jeff, if this is a misunderstanding, are you prepared to provide more information to clear it up?" The question cut through the tension like a knife. Karoline Leavitt answered without hesitation, her voice as sharp as steel. "This isn't just about Lauren Sánchez acting on her own," she said, "as never leaving Bezos. She's part of a broader strategy, your strategy. For years, you've used the Washington Post as a tool to shape narratives, especially against the president. These leaked photos are only one thread in a much deeper web." Bezos shot to his feet, his voice louder than before, edged with barely contained emotion. "You're crossing the line, Karoline. Lauren isn't anyone's pawn. She's her own woman, and your slander is disgraceful. The Washington Post operates independently, and I'll defend both Lauren and their integrity, no matter the cost." The audience erupted. Some chanted Jeff, while others shouted Karoline. Chaos pulsed through the crowd. The host, ever composed, tapped the mic gently, a pristine smile still painted on his face. "We're clearly venturing into sensitive ground. Karoline, do you have more evidence to support your claims?" Without a word, Leavitt raised the remote. The screen behind them flickered to life again, replaying the now infamous clip, only this time in slow motion. Zoomed in, the footage clearly captured Lauren Sánchez scanning the room, her phone subtly raised before snapping a covert photo. Leavitt turned to the crowd. "Does this look like the action of someone who's just innocently attending an event? Judge for yourselves." Boos erupted. Some directed at Bezos. "Would you like me to name them?" Karoline Leavitt's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Jeff Bezos sat down slowly, brushing a hand across his chin, his expression darkening. The host, sensing the rising intensity, stepped in smoothly. "Karoline," he said, keeping his tone composed, "you're painting a radically different image of Miss Sánchez. Do you truly believe this is part of a deliberate deception? And Jeff, if there's any misunderstanding, are you willing to clarify for the audience's sake?" Leavitt didn't flinch. Her response was immediate, icy, and precise. "This isn't just incompetence. Lauren Sánchez constructed a false narrative crafted to elevate her status beside Jeff Bezos. Black Ops Aviation isn't about aviation. It's a PR vehicle, backed and branded by Bezos, designed to polish their images. He knows the truth, but lets her play the role because it serves his agenda." Bezos shot to his feet. His voice, louder now and nearly trembling, cracked through the room. "You've gone too far, Karoline. Lauren has given herself to this work, from aerial cinematography to her efforts with Blue Origin. You think that's PR? You know nothing about what she sacrificed." He turned toward the crowd, his voice softening with emotion. "Lauren doesn't deserve this treatment. She's worked hard. I'll defend her, whatever it takes." The audience erupted. Some shouted, "Support Jeff," while others yelled, "Truth." The host tapped the mic gently, smiling as though steadying a ship in rough waters. We're wading into a very sensitive area. Karoline, do you have anything more to support your claims? Leavitt pressed a button. The studio screen once again came alive this time, replaying the Blue Origin video in slow motion, now with audio. A technician's voice rang out. Miss Sánchez, please don't touch the controls. Sánchez laughed nervously and exited the cockpit. Seconds later, the actual pilot appeared and resumed command. Leavitt's voice was low and menacing. The audience can decide, is this someone fully trained or someone playing a role? The crowd roared, boos now directed at Bezos, echoing online. Hashtags like #exposed and #fakepilot began trending within minutes. The host turned to Bezos again, his voice calm but sharp. Jeff, this certainly raises questions. Would you like to help the audience understand Lauren's actual role? Bezos took a long breath. His voice had shifted, lower now, tired. Lauren has worked tirelessly to prove herself. And yes, I will provide the documentation, but I won't be part of a televised circus. This is no place for due process. He sat back down, rigid but clearly weathered. His eyes, once defiant, now carried the fatigue of a man under siege. The host stepped to center stage in a sharp purple suit, radiating the energy of a primetime showman. Wow, Karoline, he said with a smirk, you've just lit the studio on fire. The audience is buzzing, and they're wondering what's next. Can you give us a taste of what drove you to dig even deeper into Lauren's story? Leavitt tilted her head slightly, her voice sharpened with intent. Lauren Sánchez loves to portray herself as an inspirational children's book author. The Fly Who Flew to Space sounds charming, right? But the idea wasn't hers. She lifted it from a little-known book titled Dharma Kitty Goes to Mars. This wasn't inspiration, it was theft, covered up by Jeff Bezos to protect her image. The crowd gasped. Some booed. Others fired up their phones, streaming and tweeting. On screen, Sánchez plagiarized? Bezos's face tightened. His hand clenched slightly, eyes heavy like fire reduced to ash. The host kept his tone playful but edged with irony. Well, Karoline, that's a bombshell. Do you have anything to help the audience connect the dots? Leavitt stepped to the control table again, laying a file down gently as if unveiling the final stroke of a masterpiece. Let the truth speak. The screen lit up. An email from Sánchez to a publisher. Dharma Kitty is interesting, but I think we can go bigger. A legal document comparing the two books, both centered around small, unlikely heroes dreaming of space travel. A short interview clip from the Dharma Kitty author. I sent Lauren my manuscript hoping to collaborate. She never replied, but months later, I saw the same story, with her name on it. The studio exploded. Gasps. Outrage. One person shouted, she stole it. The host clapped his hands with theatrical delight. Now that's a twist. Karoline, Jeff, this is turning into a firestorm. Jeff, care to respond? Bezos stood, adjusting his tie. His voice was low, but trembling with anger. You're turning creativity into a crime, Karoline. That book came from Lauren's heart to inspire kids. The lawsuit? A misunderstanding. The emails? Normal in publishing. You're distorting everything. He looked straight at Leavitt, fire returning to his eyes. You're trying to destroy a woman's dream. What does that say about you? The crowd split again. One half applauded Bezos. The other half chanted, tell the truth. Leavitt stepped forward, her tone chilling. Jeff, you call it research. I have an email from Sonist's own publisher admitting they knew about Dharma Kitty, but greenlit Lauren's book anyway because her name would sell more. She paused, locking eyes with Bezos. Would you like me to release that too? Bezos dropped back into his chair, rubbing his forehead. The fight was still in him, but the cracks were showing. The host grinned, rocking slightly on his heels. Oh, Karoline. You're not letting your opponent breathe. You're painting a very different picture of Lauren Sánchez. Is this really just coincidence or calculated deception? Jeff, if this is all a mistake, here's your chance. Clarify it for all of us. Leavitt didn't wait. This wasn't a mistake, she said coldly. Lauren Sánchez took an idea from a struggling author to build her brand. And Jeff? He knew. He let it happen because it made them both look powerful. This isn't art. It's strategy. And it's dishonest. Bezos stood once more, fury now unmistakable. You've crossed every line, Karoline. Lauren poured her soul into that book. You call it plagiarism, but you don't understand what it takes to create. She deserves better than this circus. He turned to the crowd, voice heavy with conviction. I'll protect her, no matter what accusations you hurl. The studio crackled with tension, an electric charge running through every audience member, as if they were wired into the unfolding drama. Stage lights blazed down, casting a stark spotlight on Karoline Leavitt, who stood like a blade, unbending, cold, and controlled. Across from her, Jeff Bezos sat rigidly, gripping the arms of his chair. The calm mask on his face was beginning to fracture, his lips trembling slightly, signs of a man nearing his breaking point. The host, clad in a bold, deep purple suit that shimmered beneath the lights, stepped into the center of the storm with a showman's swagger. His grin was explosive, his energy high voltage, his voice booming with amusement, and just enough mockery to stir the pot. My word, Karoline, you've got this studio on edge. One more twist, and we might see sparks fly. Can the audience even handle what's coming next? Leavitt didn't flinch. Her voice, icy and surgical, cut through the room. I'm not here to entertain. Lauren Sánchez parades her friendship with Ivanka Trump like it's a badge of credibility. But it's not real. She exploited that connection, probing for sensitive information about the president's inner circle, and funneled it straight to Jeff Bezos to expand his leverage. This wasn't friendship. It was calculated manipulation. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by a crescendo of whispers, hisses, and stunned cries. The camera zoomed in on Bezos, his eyes now dark slits, his fists clenched so tightly the color drained from his knuckles. The host clapped dramatically, his voice playful but edged with disbelief. Phew. Karoline, are you sure you're not moonlighting as a screenwriter? Because that sounds like the plot of a blockbuster thriller. Bezos stood, adjusting his tie with a trembling hand. His voice was low, but the fury beneath it simmered hot. Karoline is spinning fiction, twisting normal conversations into some paranoid fantasy. Those emails? Just friendly exchanges. Lauren and Ivanka are close because of shared interests, not politics, not espionage. To claim otherwise is not only absurd, it's vile. He turned his gaze directly at Leavitt, his eyes like drawn arrows. You're poisoning a genuine friendship to score headlines. What does that say about your character? Leavitt took a single step forward, unmoved. You call it friendship? Jeff, I have sworn testimony from a former Ivanka aide stating Sánchez repeatedly pushed for confidential information, disguised as casual chat. Shall I read their name aloud? Right now, on live television? Bezos slumped slightly, rubbing his forehead. His fatigue was finally showing. The studio audience held its breath, phones raised, social media feeds exploding. The host raised his hand with a practiced flourish, his tone bouncing between amused and alarmed. Karoline, you're giving no one a moment to breathe. This is sounding less like a misunderstanding and more like a conspiracy theory. So tell us, what convinces you this wasn't just poor judgment, but an intentional setup? And Jeff, if this is just confusion, now's your chance to explain. Leavitt struck immediately, her voice as precise as a scalpel. This wasn't accidental. Sánchez didn't accidentally earn trust or accidentally pass it to Jeff. She built that friendship for one reason: access. Jeff used her to monitor, influence, and manipulate the administration from the inside. This isn't speculation. It's a backroom deal dressed in designer labels. Bezos sprang up, his voice now sharp, cracking under pressure. That's enough, Karoline. You've twisted everything. Lauren isn't a puppet, and she certainly isn't mine. She's loyal, decent, and her friendship with Ivanka is real. You're distorting harmless conversations into political weapons. He turned to the audience, his tone softening into something more vulnerable, pleading even. Lauren doesn't deserve this smear campaign. She deserves respect. And I'll stand by her, no matter how deep these accusations cut. The studio pulsed with electricity, as if every audience member was wired into a storm unfolding in real time. Stage lights blazed across the faces of those on set, illuminating Karoline Leavitt, poised, unshaken, her eyes sharp as steel. Across from her, Jeff Bezos sat motionless, his fingers locked together, his posture taut. The man who once radiated boardroom calm now seemed engulfed by something he couldn't control. The host, his dazzling smile and theatrical tone cut for prime time, strode to center stage in a perfectly tailored deep purple suit. His voice was a mixture of drama, charm, and sly showmanship. Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed, that was no ordinary interview. Karoline, you dropped fire on this studio. And Jeff, you're still standing, but should I be calling the fire department or security? The crowd roared with laughter, then hushed as Bezos stood slowly, his movements deliberate, heavy with emotional weight. When he finally spoke, his voice didn't belong to the titan of tech. It belonged to a man fighting to preserve someone else's dignity. Lauren is a good person caught in a political battlefield. I won't let her be destroyed for something she didn't do. He paused, eyes scanning the room. The defiance in his posture softened. She's not a traitor, not a fraud, not a plagiarist. She's talented, brave, and she didn't choose this war. She was dragged into it. I can't let her be collateral damage in someone else's campaign for relevance. Silence fell like a curtain. No cheers, no applause, just the heavy, aching quiet of a truth, real or not, that had finally landed. The host's tone shifted. The showman's smile faded slightly as he stepped forward with calm reverence. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the close of a night that no one will forget. The emotions, the revelations, the storm between two of the most powerful voices in America, it was more than a discussion. It was a moment of cultural reckoning. The lights dimmed. The backdrop faded. The stage transformed into something almost sacred in its stillness. Jeff Bezos had said his final word. Karoline Leavitt remained unmoved, silent, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. And the audience, both inside the studio and across millions of screens, sat suspended in stunned disbelief. The host stood once more between them, his voice measured and deliberate, carrying the weight of the moment like a broadcast anchor breaking history live. Tonight wasn't just about politics. It was about truth, power, image, and how quickly they can collide. You may agree. You may disagree. But one thing is certain, you watched it. And you'll remember it. He gave the camera one last practice smile, just warm enough. Thank you for joining us for this unforgettable broadcast. We'll see you next time on the National Spotlight, where the light doesn't just shine on the stage. It reveals the truth. The theme music played softly. The show's logo glowed silver and rotated slowly before fading to black. And then the lights went out. Post-show, the aftermath began immediately. The audience hesitated to leave, many still frozen in place, staring at the empty stage as if it were a battlefield that had just gone quiet. Phones buzzed relentlessly. Notifications exploded. Cable news outlets rushed into breaking news coverage mode, each dissecting every glance, every phrase, every shift in tone. Backstage, the mood was different, quieter, sharper, more real. Karoline Leavitt stepped off stage, the fire in her eyes dimmed but not extinguished. A young aide rushed up, phone in hand, over 300 messages in just the last 10 minutes. Karoline exhaled, barely looking. It started, she whispered. Far across the corridor, Jeff Bezos was already wrapped in a coat by an aide and ushered toward a waiting black vehicle. He said nothing. When asked if he wanted to make a statement, he simply nodded once, his face unreadable. A bodyguard stepped in, gently parting the reporters from his path. A Reuters photographer captured the moment, Bezos walking away, back turned. The photo was posted just 7 minutes later with the caption, Bezos leaves Spotlight studio in silence. The image says it all. The media frenzy began before the echo of applause had even faded. CNN opened its 10 p.m. segment with a zoomed-in clip of Leavitt's on-air line. This isn't a pilot, it's a PR campaign. Fox News ran a fiery headline. Leavitt exposes Bezos. Political drama or hidden truth? Meanwhile, on X, a short, looping clip of Bezos' stunned silence during the Sánchez video went viral, dubbed, "The Silence Heard Around the World." An anonymous West Wing official texted a veteran political reporter just after the broadcast, "We didn't orchestrate tonight. But we're not sorry it happened." At 11:02 p.m., Politico published its headline, "Cold and Calculated, Leavitt's Gambit. The administration stays silent." But not still. Washington didn't sleep. Not that night. This was no longer just a talk show segment. It was a cultural earthquake. Karoline Leavitt had turned a primetime interview into a public tribunal, putting billionaires, media giants, and the machinery of influence on trial under the glare of live television. The Washington Post, long a symbol of Bezos' influence, now faced a mounting boycott. Readers demanded transparency. Trust had fractured. Amazon stock took a visible dip, a financial tremor that reminded everyone. Even the world's titans can bleed. Lauren Sánchez, once a sparkling presence online, went silent. Her digital footprint began to vanish. Posts deleted. Comments disabled. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt, clutching her now iconic USB drive, had become a symbol. To her supporters, she was a fearless truth-teller, hailed across MAGA forums as a modern-day warrior. To her critics, she was ruthless, accused of weaponizing truth for personal and political gain. Under the pale moonlight, Leavitt stood at her office window, gazing down at the Capitol. Her phone buzzed with a message from the president. "Well done, but brace yourself." She exhaled slowly, understanding what few in politics ever truly grasp. This wasn't just about winning. It was about what the victory cost. She hadn't just exposed secrets. She had deepened the fracture in an already divided nation, where truth had become a double-edged weapon. A viral post captured the mood perfectly. Leavitt changed the game. But at what cost? Some praised her strength. Others whispered about the lives burned in the blaze. Was justice worth the collateral damage? Leavitt looked down at the crowds gathering outside, her voice a near whisper. If truth has a price, I'm willing to pay it. That night, a new chapter in American politics had been written, not with legislation, but with confrontation, silence, and the raw power of televised truth. Her message: power isn't invincible, but every strike leaves a scar. As the city darkened, social media roared. Hashtags like hashtag Leavitt Files, hashtag Spotlight Scandal, and hashtag Bezos Break trended across platforms. The debate didn't end with the broadcast. It grew. It mutated. It divided. This wasn't just television. This was America now, where politics, media, money, and social perception collide like tectonic plates. Karoline Leavitt's accusations, spanning Sánchez's alleged covert photos, falsified aviation credentials, plagiarism scandal, and manipulation of Ivanka Trump, may have felt like shock TV, but to millions, it felt like long overdue accountability. Jeff Bezos' transformation, from untouchable billionaire to emotionally shaken partner, was a jarring reminder. Reputation, no matter how powerful, is always at the mercy of public perception. And Karoline's victory, though decisive, wasn't clean. It came with ethical questions that echoed through every outlet and every home. Is exposing truth a righteous act, or a ruthless one? Social media's response was lightning fast and deeply polarized. One side crowned Leavitt a hero. The other accused her of character assassination. The virality didn't just amplify the moment. It made symbols of people. And symbols, in politics, don't bleed. But people do. The lesson? In today's America, truth is powerful. But power demands responsibility. Leavitt's evidence, emails, footage, and testimony changed lives and reputations overnight. But even facts, when misused, can become weapons. So the final word isn't just about Karoline, Bezos, or Sánchez. It's a call to all of us to verify before we judge, to think before we share, and to remember that justice without compassion becomes spectacle. Subscribe for more, because in the national spotlight, the stage never stays dark for long. See you in the next chapter, where the truth doesn't sleep. It explodes.